This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. Hey, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have Aaron Walker. Aaron is a Nashville-based entrepreneur, coach, and founder of viewfromthetop.com. He started the first of his 8 businesses when he was only 18 years old, and by the time he was 27, he had sold it to a Fortune 500 company. Today, he helps men who want to live lives of success and significance, and he does this through his personal coaching, online courses, and mastermind groups. And it's my great pleasure to have Aaron on the show today. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks, James. I appreciate you having me on.
So share with our listeners what's going on in your world just now.
You know, we're pretty busy. We have one-on-one clients nationally and internationally. I facilitate mastermind groups now. I have 7 groups that I facilitate on a weekly basis. And then I'm writing a book called View from the Top to help people achieve their goals and dreams and to let them understand exactly how they can have a view from the top.
And obviously, you're known in the world for your mastermind groups. That's something that you've developed over time. And I'm imagining before you kind of developed your own mastermind groups, you were a member of mastermind groups to start off with.
Yeah, I've been involved, James, now in mastermind groups for 2 decades. And a good buddy of mine, Dave Ramsey, it's in the financial arena here in the States, got me involved. I was his second sponsor of his radio station back in 1995. When he was on 1 station, now he's on 800, and I've got to see that up close, him teaching the processes that he's used to be successful. And he invited me to his mastermind group, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the process. It's probably been the biggest game changer for me for 2 decades now. And
I mentioned at the top of the show, you were fortunate you were able to start a business very early on and build it up and then sell it at the age of 27. So maybe just talk to us about both the experience of kind of when it gets, because I know a lot of our listeners who are maybe entrepreneurs or even they're not entrepreneurs, but they're working in some other parts of the creative industries, and they get to that point and they get that big success or sell that business and do something, and then they have an experience which I sense that you had when you sold that very, very first business.
You know, I have to take you back just a little bit. I started really early at 13 years old working in a retail store here in Nashville, fell in love with the business. I didn't have any money, James. I didn't come from a privileged background at all. My parents actually were very bad business people. They were great people of character and morality, but they didn't know how to do business. And so I had to go out and find a couple of guys that had a lot of money, and I did. I found an insurance agency that was the 21st largest company in America that the proprietors lived here in Nashville, and I approached them and said, why don't we take your money and my experience and open, a bricks and mortar business? And we did. And I was 18 years old at the time. It ended up being very successful, but here's the reason it ended up successful. Robin and I got married 2 weeks out of high school, and we decided to live our lives differently. We wanted to delay gratification because we felt like maybe we'd never get this opportunity again. So we poured all the money back into the business. We didn't increase our lifestyle. So a 10-year loan that I took out initially with this company ended up getting paid off in 36 months. And I said, well, now I'm 21. I'm going to repeat this process. So we did. We bought our second store, same way, about 4 years, paid it off. And now I'm 25, 26 years old. We repeated that 4 times, and we remained in the same parameters of the financial income for that 9-year period. And then a Fortune 500 company discovered me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I was through at 27 years old, and it happened pretty quick. It was a lot of hard work, but just in a short period of time. But what I want to really talk on just for a minute, be sure you've got a game plan when that success comes, because I didn't. And I sold the business at 27 years old, and I was finished. Had a little bit of money and had time, but I became extremely bored. I was getting in the bed, James, in the middle of the day. I gained 50 pounds in 18 months because I didn't have anything to do. And Robin woke me up from a nap one day, and she said, this is not the guy I married. I don't know what's going on with you, but what is it? And I said, I don't have any reason to get up. So I'll just kind of take a pause there for a second. With that, I became very bored.
So many people, listening to this who are maybe working on their own businesses and they maybe have a target. That's the thing they want. They want to have an exit from their business, whatever they're in, or they want to have that big hit, whether it's a book or the album, whatever the thing that they're working on, and then they get it. And it's sometimes not necessarily what they perceived it was going to be. So how did you talked about that sense of like going to bed in the afternoon and finally your wife Robin said, okay, this isn't happening here. What happened next?
Well, here's what happens that I didn't realize. I had no trusted advisors. I didn't have a mastermind group at the time. I didn't have an accountability group. I didn't have anyone. I was kind of isolated in regards to making my decisions. I was making it on my own. And quite honestly, I look back now and think I made probably a bad decision. I probably would have taken it to a management level and let someone else run it. Now I've got a business rather than a job. And I probably would have taken it down a different path. It did give me a little, shot in the arm out of the gate, kind of financial resources, and it helped me to do other things. But the thing is that we've got to have something to do that is meaningful and purposeful. When our focus is entirely on ourselves, that soon plays out not to prove itself worthy of what the objective is, and that's to quit. If you're building your business to quit, stop doing that. You need to build your business to grow to a business that can make you more money, that you can do other things with, but be very clear on what you're going to do with the money, what you're going to do with the success. You need to think about what it looks like once you get it. And I didn't have that ability. I didn't know to know that. No one had told me that. I came from a very, very poor environment, so I didn't even have in my mind what success would look like. And so I just made some bad choices as a result of it. And there's nothing worse. I became very arrogant, James, just to be honest with you. I was 27 years old, had enough money, had a schedule. Nobody was overseeing me. And I made some bad choices as a result of that because I didn't have advisors around me. So all I want to say is fast forward in your mind and see what success looks like and make sure you make the right decisions.
And then where did the mastermind, where did that first instance of actually becoming a member of a mastermind, what was the catalyst from that? And what did you personally get from having that experience?
It's a fun story. I'll tell you how I even came about knowing about it. So after that first business, I sold out, took 18 months off, didn't do anything but lay around and watch reruns of Andy Griffith, and get fat and eat too many potato chips. And then one day Robin goes, my wife, she said, you got to do something else. And I did. Went back, bought the company I started with, and we grew that business 4 times the size it was in about a 9.5-year period. And in that process, at that time, in 1995, I was at a concert. There was a Christian group called Mercy Me, and they were playing at the Curb Center here in Nashville. And I was at the concert, and my friend that I advertised on his show, Dave Ramsey, was sitting a few rows ahead of me. We had known each other a number of years by this point. And he got up during intermission, and he walked back to me, and he said, hey, I want you to think about something. He said, I've got a mastermind that meets in my office that we're just starting, and I want you to be a member of it. And I said, a what? And he goes, a mastermind. I said, I don't even know what that is. And he said, just trust me. Come check it out. So I go there. Dave lives in the same city as I do, and here in Nashville. And I'm sitting around a table with 10 guys that I don't know. And these guys, some of them are just starting their businesses. Others are kind of taking it to the second level. And it was very uncomfortable for me at first, James, I'll have to admit, because I was in a group of strangers. They were talking about their business, their personal life, and I was a little timid because I didn't want everybody knowing my business. And I'm like, I'm not even going to share those things that they're sharing. And so I went back week after week in Dave's office, and they started sharing more and more. And I thought, you know what? This is a pretty safe environment. They don't even know me really because I live, on the north side of Nashville. They live on the south side, 45 minutes away. They don't even know me. So maybe I can get some advice and not share too much. So I started kind of doling it out a little bit at a time. Well, they gave me great advice, and I went back and implemented those strategies, and it worked. And I thought, well, dadgum, this is pretty good. So I go back and I'd say, Robin and I are struggling in this area in our marriage, and some of you guys have been married longer than me. And what would you do in this scenario? And they gave me advice because they had been experienced. And I went back and I tried it, and I'm like, man, this worked also. So over the years, I developed a trust for these guys because they had nothing to gain or lose as a result of what they told me, right? They weren't my partner. They weren't my family. And why would they not give me honest advice? So I came to discover, James, that there's wisdom in the counsel of the multitudes, right? These are smart guys. I mean, guys like Dan Miller with 48 Days to the Work You Love, a very prolific author, has got 7 books out now. Ken Abraham, which has 110 books now in print. He's one of the most acclaimed authors on the planet now. He was in the group. Jeff Mosley owns INO Records. There's all kinds of guys that had done well in their business. And I'm like, man, these guys, the IQ of this room is collectively, it's at the genius status because these are smart guys to begin with. And I started implementing their strategies and listening to them. And I thought, why would I even think that I could know better than 10 other guys? Because they have nothing to gain or lose, right, as a result of telling me the truth. So I fell in love with the process through that, and then I've just learned to take their advice.
And it reminds me that there's that, I can't remember the quote exactly, but you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time, or it's something.
Jim Rohn.
Is it Jim Rohn? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was Anthony Robbins' kind of mentor as well, talking about mentors. And it reminds me a little bit as well that I think it was the Miles Davis quote when he said, someone asked him, how do you get good? And he said, play with people that are better than you. It pushes you up as well. And I know, from my personal experience of being involved in a number of masterminds, either leading them or actually being a member of a mastermind as well, the huge value that it can give you, especially once you kind of get over that initial hump that you spoke about of, initially you can go in wanting to hold things back because you don't want to share to, and then you start, obviously the trust builds, and that's, I think, obviously when you're willing to give.
Here's the thing, James. We all want people to think we've got it all together, but the truth is none of us have it all together. That's the truth. There are areas that we're strong, but there's areas we're weak, and we need help. We need people to help us get better in the areas that we're strong. And we need people to help us change our attitude and our focus and our mindset shift to areas that we're weak and to make us better. And the only way that we can do that is to drop the veil. See, we got this shield up, this facade, and we all live behind that because we want people to think that we've got it together. There's great strength in being transparent in an environment that's safe. Now, you can't go out there to a bunch of guys or a bunch of ladies and share all your dirty laundry. That's insane. A person would be crazy to do that. But over time, you build a trust with people that you know. Listen, the first year or 2 that I was in that group, I only told them about 50%. And by year 3 or year 4, there was nothing I wouldn't say to those guys. I didn't even have to say, hey, James, don't say anything about this. This is private. It was understood that it was private. And the objective here is to get better. And when you surround yourself with people better, I tell a golf analogy. There's a guy that I play golf with. It's a +2 handicap. Well, I'm not. I'm a 9 handicap. But you know what? Every time I play with that guy, I do better.
Yeah.
Right? It brings me up. Well, I can play with guys all day long and beat them, but why do I want to do that? I want to play with guys that I'm number 4 in the lineup, not number 1, because I always bring my better game. Same way in business. Surround yourself with the mastermind, and you'll take your business and personal life to the next level.
And in this fascinating journey you've had in your life and your career, can you talk to our listeners about an insight or a light bulb moment in it, a time when you've had made some kind of distinction where you've kind of gone, okay, this is the direction I need to be taking, or I need to listen to this lesson just now and do something with it? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I learned early on in the mastermind group is the value of building relationships intentionally. A lot of people are more introverted. They stay in their office and they are isolated. And isolation is not a good thing at all. As a matter of fact, in the book, Enemies of Excellence, Greg talks about isolation as being one of the worst things that you could possibly do for the development of yourself personally and your business. There's a number of other things, but isolation is one of the top. And so what I learned is building relationships intentionally. I really spend 25 or 30% of my time, even now, building relationships, reaching out to guys that I don't know. Maybe they're not even in an industry that matters to me, But at some point, somehow, some way, that relationship's going to pay big dividends. So the light bulb moment for me 2 decades ago was build more relationships very intentionally.
That's great advice. In fact, I used to ask a question on this, the precursor to this show I used to do called Musical Life, and I asked Grammy Award-winning musicians and platinum sellers, and one of the final questions I asked them was, what would you do if you had to start again, if you did to kind of get started? And I actually stopped asking the question because they all gave exactly the same answer, which was exactly the answer you just gave just there. Get out there, get building those relationships, really investing time. As great as technology is and as great as online is, actually going out and also meeting people in person as well as online.
James, let me make a couple of small suggestions for people, practical things that they can do. Will you allow me to do that for a moment?
Absolutely.
Here's some things that we've done that have paid huge dividends. First of all, your motivation's got to be right. People can notice in a second if you're doing it for the wrong motivation. If you're doing it to get something, people detect that very quickly. We just have the innate ability to smell a skunk, right? We know that they're doing it for the wrong reason. Your motivation's got to be pure, and that is to be a giver. You don't want to be a taker. Adam Grant wrote a great book called Givers and Takers. You want to be the giver, the guy that's always trying to make someone else's life better. And that's one of the things that I want my legacy to be, is how your life was better as a result of having known me. Well, the only way that can happen is if I'm intentional about how I can make your life better. So we do some very, very elementary things today. I'll sit down and do a video testimonial. Take my Mac computer, it takes 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and I'll give someone an endorsement. I'll sit down and say, man, James Taylor is the bomb. He's the guy. Here's his podcast. Be sure and reach out, check him out. You know what I'm saying? And just send it to him without him asking, right? That's the key. Do it before people ask, because anybody will do it, when they're asked. The second thing is LinkedIn recommendations. Just get on there and say, hey, James Taylor's the guy. He's helped me in so many areas. It makes an indelible impression on people when you do that. The third thing is I'll take my address book and go through it on my phone, and I'll go, you know what? I haven't talked to Billy Bob in a long time. I'll give him a call. I'll ask him, hey, Billy, how are you? How's Susan doing? How are the children? How's your business? Just checking on you. Well, Billy Bob on the other end is thinking, okay, he's going to get to the question in a minute. He's going to ask me what he called for. And here's what I do. I say, okay, man, have a good day. And I hang up. And he's like, he really called me to check on me. He was really interested in me. That's made an impression on that guy like nobody else today, because everybody's waiting on the question. They always say, oh, while I've got you, let me ask you a question. James, I always want to go, you liar. Now we're getting down to why you called me. Right? You want something. Call people intentionally every day. Text them. Hey, man, thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day. I remember this test you're having. What were the results? How's your wife doing? How's your business? Care about people, right? I mean, listen, get from behind your screen. Get off your cell phone. Get off Facebook. Pick up the phone and call people and check on them. Your relationships will go to another level that you never expected when you genuinely reach out to people and care about them.
Well, Aaron, these are some gems here as well. And I'm conscious that as people are listening to this, they may be out running or out in the car, and they're hearing you say something. Oh, I've got to write this down. So don't worry, you don't have to write that. If you go to jamestaylor.me and just type in Aaron Walker in the search, you'll get on the show notes. I'll make sure we have all of these gems that Aaron's giving us just now as well. Can you share with our listeners a personal habit that you think contributes to the success that you've had?
Yeah, be the Energizer bunny. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Be very deliberate, be very intentional. I'm very thought through when it comes to processes, things I want to accomplish. You got to have a plan, and it needs to be written, because if it's just in your mind, it's a dream. It's not a plan. It's not a goal. So be very specific in nature in that. And all the people that I respect have always talked about how important consistency is. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, do it deliberate, do it consistently. The other thing is personal development. I spend about 10% of my gross revenue every year on personal development, whether it's going to conferences, listening to TED Talks, reading blogs, Whatever it is I'm doing, I do it very intentional, I do it very deliberate each and every year, and spend at least 10% of your gross income in personal development.
There's some great suggestions there. And do you have any online resources or tools that you love and you think our listeners should check out?
You know what I've done? There are 3 resources that I've written. One of them is a personal assessment. And one of these helps you identify your identity and your ideals. And it dives deep into your relationships with your family, your faith, your career, who you are as an individual. There's about 30 questions in this document. It's called a personal assessment. There's another one called What Do I Want? James, it's so funny because I coach people each and every day, and I have so much fun with this question. I'll say, geographically speaking or financial, no limitations, what would you do tomorrow if you had the opportunity to do anything you wanted? And most people don't know the answer to that question. They're just out every day going through the grind, trying to make the payments, trying to just keep up with the Joneses. They don't really have a plan. They don't know what they want. And I help people get very focused, very intentional, get very clear on what you want. That's the second resource. The third one is once you understand who you are and you know what you want, I wrote Steps to a Productive Day. It's kind of a to-do list on steroids. Starts out your day very methodical. I start out very early. I have a ritual I go through each and every day before I start my work. I do that every day, and I've written that document. I've taken the price off those documents, and I'm going to give them to your audience. If you go to viewfromthetop.com/creative life podcast, all in lowercase letters, those documents are there for free. So I'll just give them to you instead of sell them to you.
Well, that's awesome. That's very kind of you, Aaron, as well. And if you could recommend just one record and one book. Now, I'm conscious that you're in the land of country music as well, in Nashville as well, which has a long, great tradition of incredible music coming out. So what would the one record and one book that you would recommend to our listeners that they check out?
Steve Winwood, Back in the High Life, is a great, great song. And then a book that I would read would be How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's a classic. It was written 5 decades ago. It should be a must read for everyone. And if you read it, read it again, because the principles in it apply to every situation each and every day. It really focuses on building friendships, treating people like you should treat them. So I would just have to say How to Win Friends and Influence People is a book that's a must read.
So final question for you, Aaron, and I'm going to ask you that question. I asked a lot of musicians in the past as well. Let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and had to start from scratch. So all you have are the tools of your trade and the knowledge that you've acquired over the years as an entrepreneur and as a coach and as a mentor. But no one knows who you were. You had to completely restart. How would you do that? How would you restart?
And you're saying we have the ability with the social media today?
Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt I would get on Facebook and Twitter. There's, over 1 billion people now on Facebook, and the ads are very, very inexpensive. Video is down to fractions of a cent per view, and Twitter has been a very, very effective tool for us. I would forget the rest of the platforms. I would concentrate all my efforts on those 2.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show. Say again, what is the best way for people to connect with you to learn more about your programs, your coaching programs, and your mastermind groups?
Yeah, viewfromthetop.com. Everything is there. The community is what I want to highlight today. I have people nationally and internationally that are involved in our tribe now. We meet in what's called the community. It's very, very affordable. I would invite you to join our community.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you all the best with all your future projects that you have, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming as well. And hope to next time you're in Scotland, we can hopefully play a little bit of golf together as well.
We'll do it. Thanks, James. Appreciate you having me on. See you, buddy.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.